Welcome to our first meetup for quarter 1. As I mentioned before, these meetups are very casual. These are your spaces, so we really encourage you to keep your cameras on if you want, if you can. That'll be really cool. It really helps when the guys are presenting to just, see some cool faces. And that's always the nice part of these meetups, is that we don't get a chance to meet everyone in person, so it's always nice to just put a face to a name in the community. If you are new to the community, please feel free to use the chat, say hi, and we'd love to get to know you a little bit better or a little bit more. That's cool. So as we mentioned before, these meetups, because this is the first meetup for quarter 4. So of course, as per tradition in these communities, our first meetup of the quarters is where Wayne then chats to us about what they've planned for the Investec API, for the tech, for everything else. And then we get to see a little bit what the Investec team is really just working on and what they're busy on. And it's your space to also get some feedback or give some feedback to the team to say what works and what doesn't work for you, so that we can incorporate it into everything that we are doing and building for you. Because again, the API and everything that Investec is building is really for you, to provide you that playground and cool space to do stuff with. So we'll jump into the agenda. So this is the proposed agenda. Please feel free, if you have anything to add, if you want to adjust it, please let me know. But I do work very hard on this agenda. But our first one up is Wayne. He's going to chat to us about quarter 4's tech roadmap. Then Lonnie's got some really cool low-code card screens that you guys are going to get the first peek at before it goes live soon. So that's actually going to be pretty cool, and nice little insight for the community. And then Neil's going to chat to us about the Investec developer sort of teaser that you're going to see a bit more about later on in the month and towards the end of this year. But you guys are going to see a bit of a tease now about it. And then, of course, the referral program. And then I'll give you an update on the community updates of what we've been up to in the community, from hackathons that we just had to some cool things that's up for grabs. So, yeah. If everyone's happy, if you're happy with that agenda, I'm guessing smiles, happy. Yeah, is there anything you want to adjust? Yeah, Lonnie's happy. Awesome. Cool. We'll jump into it. Wayne, are you ready? Are you cool? You want to
I
take us
am
through,
always ready, and I'm very cool. Well, I'm not so cool today. It's been so hot. I was dying. It's insane.
This has been hot. Cool, guys. But again, if you have anything to add, guys, please feel free to put up your hand, ask questions. This is an engaging sort of a discussion. So thanks.
Yeah. If I'm going too fast, do you have any questions? Just put up a hand or interrupt me or do something. Okay. So quarter 3 was the quarter that just obviously went past. I just quickly run through some of the stuff we did there, just for new people or people that weren't aware of it. So the CIB sandbox, so for years we went on with this mission without actually having a sandbox. So if you wanted to interact with the API, you either need an Investec account, which we understood was quite limiting for people without accounts. So we sort of reduced the scope of what we could do to just Investec employees. Since then, we've been releasing some sandboxes because we understand people want to use stuff without being employees, or clients rather. So we did one for CIB. CIB is corporate and institutional banking. It's our corporate division, so more business banking, that type of stuff. If you're wondering, is there a private bank one? We've launched that in the previous quarter. So private bank has a sandbox. You can connect to it, play around without actually having an account. Sorry, some pop-ups happening here. Virtual cards. I don't know if you all saw, we launched virtual cards in Investec Online. So we are looking at putting some more functionality in the API, but from a virtual card point of view, it was launched. It was one of the biggest community asks since day dot when we started this thing, to say like, I remember Nick and all his predecessors nagging me weekly for virtual cards. I'm glad to say that was finally completed. It's not available through the API yet. It will be soon. Okay, so we're looking at that. Low-code card screens. I'm just gonna, I think, Nick, you made it yellow, so I don't stick to it because I don't want to steal Lonnie's thunder, and he can show you what that actually means. Okay, so I'm just gonna pause that one. We'll look at Lonnie's thing after this. Then spreadsheet banking POC. I don't know how many of you have seen spreadsheet banking. I think we've shown it in previous meetups. Basically what it is, it's a spreadsheet that has a real-time connection to the Investec API. So if you open up the spreadsheet, you can make your transactions go in there, and instead of logging onto Investec Online to do it again, you can just go into that spreadsheet, hit refresh, and it pulls your transactions like real time for you. It's very valuable for some people. Some people might not find it, but like we've had a couple of clients that find it incredibly valuable because it saves a lot of admin logging into the website, doing all of that stuff to get your transactions or get payments into your accounts, for example. Like you can just use that spreadsheet to just pull it whenever you feel like it instead of having the whole schlep. Also, these are endpoints we released, the private bank statement and tax certificates. We've had some requests from the dev community and clients to say, can I actually pull a statement? So this isn't a transaction history, which is almost like data. This is the 3-month bank statement thing that you typically need when you do cars or when you do any loan type of thing. So this is a more formalized thing. I think what that thing does, it emails you your statement. So you can request through the API to get your statement emailed to you. Community sign up Investec Online. This was a long-standing thing because we were in beta for so long. The only way you could get get into the community or in programmable banking was to either talk to your banker or talk to Nick, which then spoke to people. That is quite a painful process to get new members either in the community or activated on programmable banking for Investec Online due to the beta phase of it. We've now out of that beta phase, so we made it easier for people to just basically log into Investec Online. You go to the programmable banking section, you click register, and now you're both registered as a programmable banking user, as well as you can then go from there and join the community. So it's just made it easier for new people to just access the community, as well as have access to programmable banking. Then authorization beneficiary payments. So we launched beneficiary payments quite a couple of months ago. So for private bank, you can go and make a beneficiary payment to a beneficiary that was loaded on Investec Online and had one payment made to it before. So those two restrictions being a fraud thing, just to make sure that somebody doesn't go using the API, add a beneficiary and pay it out. One of the things that we never got to was if that payment needed a second authorization, we blocked it on the API. So you couldn't actually submit beneficiary payments with authorizations. We've now added that into the feature. So if you have a beneficiary payment that requires a second authorization, you can initiate that via the API as well. So that makes sense. Okay. So that was sort of what we did in Q3. Lots of other stuff. When me and Nick went through, we thought we'd just highlight the big things for the community. We do lots of other work as well, but I'm not sure it's so entertaining for everybody. Yeah. And then looking forward to Q4. Obviously, this is a short quarter, as always. December is almost a dead month most of the time, but we're trying to get as much as we can out of this year while it's still available. So approved third parties. We've had a couple of clients that told us, like, can you add me as a proof for the party so that if I go to Investec Online and I want to, for example, you have a third party that wants to extract data on your behalf. So they want to pull your statement to go and all your transactions to go do something on your behalf. Can we add that third party into Investec Online? And then you can go and say, I authorize that third party to pull my stuff. So it's very similar to three-legged OAuth or the OAuth flows, but it's initiated from within Investec Online. And that will allow us to register third parties as valid third parties. And you can basically say, share my data with that third party. That makes sense. Could be useful for things like if you have accountants doing your finances for you. You could go share your banking information with the accountant if they're approved third party. Okay, so it's something quite exciting. It's probably more relevant in the business banking space or in certain sectors like doctor sectors or medical sectors, but it's a cool feature. Then wealth and investment APIs. I've been begging our wealth and investment team. So this would be the team that does your stockbroking portfolio. If you have investments, to give us that data via API. We're basically starting with that conversation. I saw a meeting today for next week, Tuesday, to kick it off. So we are going to hopefully soon give you the ability that if you bank with us and you have investments with us, either discretionary and non-discretionary. So in other words, either you do it yourself or you pay us to do it. If you're rich enough, you'd be able to pull your portfolio through the API and see what the values are. It won't be real-time pricing and all of these things. It'll probably just be a snapshot as in for the day when you pull it. But I think there's a lot of people that would find that quite useful because it's quite tedious to go and get a portfolio valuation on the website all the time. You'll have to like print out things or do a CSV export. This will let you plug it into either some homegrown system you built or some spreadsheet or something that you have that you're running your finances off. So that's quite cool. Power Automate connectors. This is we saw quite a while back that instead of us connecting to everything else, there's this new, I don't know how new it is, but it's a fairly new concept called iPaaS, which is Integration Platform as a Service. They basically, Google has one, Microsoft has one called Power Automate. I'm sure you all know sort of what Power Automate does. Basically lets you plug into Power Automate, and that lets you plug into any other of the Microsoft suite. So you could say, let's pull the data into Power Automate and send it to Excel or send it to Power Automate. Not what's that thing? Power BI. Or any of the other Microsoft stuff. There's also plugins built into Microsoft that connects to third parties. For example, they might have a if this then that connector. So leveraging the power of Power Automate, I'm saying power so much it sounds weird, but leveraging the power of these like tools that plug into other systems, we can spread the distribution of that data to more systems that we don't have to support. So it's a very cool thing. The Microsoft stack is probably the one we're going to approach first. So let's look at what we can get into Microsoft and then distribute it into the rest of the Microsoft suite. And with things like Copilot coming in the Microsoft suite, I think there's some really nice opportunities around automation, what you can do with your data once you're in that Microsoft environment through Power Automate. What are you doing there, Nick? Are you saying I look like Homer Simpson? What did you say?
No.
Okay, third-party onboarding process. So I'm sure that a lot of people in the community would be interested in this one. What this basically means is if you want to be set up as a third party on the API, in other words, you want to act on behalf of other Investec clients. So you build an app and it does school budgeting and you want to give it to other Investec clients, you have to register yourself as a third-party vendor. The reason you have to do this is there's some security concerns and some governance concerns here. For example, you might not be storing the client's keys that you're going to be interacting with securely. You might not have the infrastructure. You might not have cyber detection. So it's quite a laborious process to get that up and running. In the UK, they have a process for that run by the OBIE, which for PSD2 and open banking, you basically have to register with them. But because there's no legislation in South Africa, we built our own third-party vendor onboarding process. It's still quite painful, but at least gives other companies or individuals the option of saying, I want to register as a third party and then leverage the power of the open API to get the other clients of Investec use my app. So hopefully that made sense. Hey, yes, Nick, did that make sense to you? You're my yardstick, yeah. Yes.
Yes, it did. But I'm really intrigued about the third-year party vendor part. I think that's actually going to be really critical with a lot of the stuff. I think with the community's been maturing in the last year and really building some really cool things, and now it's the time to really help them kind of take what they've built and package it into something really cool for other people to use. So 100%. I think this is the perfect sort of whole timing for that. So yeah, if there's any sort of feedback that guys might have around this, please let us know and we'll try to provide as much as we can.
Yeah. As Nick said, like if you build something on Programmable Banking or the API, you can't really get anybody else to use it unless you go through that process where we can then authorize other people to use your app. So it's critical for us to get some more hardcore apps built in the community that other people can use. Investec developer go-to-market. Once again, I think that's later on the agenda. I'm not going to steal Neil's thunder there. We'll chat about that later. Postman as developer documentation. So we've been exploring a lot around how to make the developer experience better, like how to make it easier to connect to the API, tooling to make it just like easier for people to interact with the API. Postman's come up quite a bit, and we've been looking quite extensively about we actually create a bigger Postman footprint to get devs to be efficient more quickly. So we had a hackathon last Saturday. We gave them some Postman collections. They found it really valuable to just like get up and running quickly without having to learn the basics of everything. So I think that's a very valuable tool, and we'll probably be investing more time and effort in making sure that the tool Postman is well enabled to interact with the API through collections or whatever it means. And then card sandbox and managed cards for ICIB. ICIB is the same as CIB. It's just two different words for the same thing. Could have put the I in the front there or taken the I out, yeah, but anyway. It's basically just for businesses to be able to manage their business cards. So if a business comes to Investec banks with us, they get some business cards to give to whoever they want to use it. This lets them actually log in and manage those cards more effectively. So it's the managed cards functionality, and as I said earlier, the sandbox to go with it to help businesses integrate to it before they become clients. So if your business or prospective business wants to come join us, they can look at what the card management functionality is like before becoming a client, similar to the CIB sandbox I said earlier. So and that's it. I think there's some other things also on the cards, but like I think these are the main topics for now. So any questions or any feedback or anything that you think could be missing and we should rather focus on that?
I kind of like, yeah.
No, I'm joking. No, jokes. Price, things like that. Better focus on price.
We're going to focus on year-end parties and price. Is that what you say?
Yeah, I think it's also a case of I think we're building out the tools to kind of enable the developers to build something really cool out of it. So I think the Devin's work around his postman collections is really cool, is really great, and that's really matured for the last year. I think that third party stuff is really important at the moment because, as we mentioned before, the guys are building some really cool things here. I really love the wealth and investment sort of whole API track. I would love to see more foreign exchange and the currency stuff there, which would be pretty interesting. But yeah, of course the sandboxes are really cool. I really love those. So, and the card one, I know it's tricky, but if we can get something to just emulate that card part to everything, I think then that gives a nice little toolbox set for people to start to play around with it. Because I know one of the big sort of whole barriers for a lot of people who are starting with program banking is the fear of using their own bank account. Essentially, I don't want to play around with my own money. So if we can alleviate that risk and mitigate that risk a little bit for them to say, hey, it's safe, it's cool, it's fun, it's easy. And here's the proof to show you, which is really cool. So
100%. Thanks, Neil. Glad you're proud of me. I'm going to fire you tomorrow. Just watch. Unless you do a really good job of your presentation on Investec developer go to market, then let's see. Okay. If there's no questions, I think let's move on.
Cool. Cool.
Anybody can just stop. If you think of something later, just stop and ask. I'll be, stop. Okay.
Yeah. Feel free to use
I have a question, if I could chime in. I'm really excited to see, how the API for wealth and investment piece will work. I have a couple of clients who are super stoked and interested in, playing around with Clarity. Do we have any plans about creating an API for that space in future, or are we just kind of playing it by ear for now?
Clarity, the investments are actually done by another company. So we are, if that makes sense. So we don't have any plans right now for the APIs. You would have thought you'd see it through the wealth investment APIs, but I don't think you will. It's a big, so I don't know if anybody else on the call, let me just clarify or create clarity on Clarity for the people that don't know. So Clarity is a app, part of our CIB business launch. They initially started with internal staff. They're rolling it out to Intel clients. They're rolling it out a bit bigger in the future. What it basically allows you to do is do fractional investments into basically any market in the world almost. So you could go buy 0.1 of an Apple share, for example, on the Clarity app. So you put money in the app, you move it offshore, you buy some equity or parts of equity. It's not a real equity. You don't really own the equity, obviously, because you only own 0.1% of it, but you can actually get exposure to things like Google, Apple, Facebook. There's really nice stuff there. So the question then I think is, if you have a Clarity account with Investec, will the API show you that stuff? I don't think so in the near future. I will go ask the Clarity guy if there's APIs, and maybe that's something we can investigate. It might be a really cool idea, actually, because it's quite a nice digital offering. You would expect APIs just to sort of be part of it. That prepaid electricity thing, we explored it a while back. I haven't heard anybody ask for it, but like I will definitely go and ask again, Quibus. So Quibus's question in the chat, just can we do prepaid electricity? Like you can go into Investec online and buy it. Questions, can you do it through the API? I don't think it would be that hard to do, but we'll definitely go and chat to somebody about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. We're
Cool.
back to you, Nick.
Cool. Guys, again, feel free to use the chat. So if any sort of there's stuff there, Wayne can answer there. And there's also the Slack if you want to put it into Slack. It's all cool. Cool. Next up is Lonnie. So Lonnie's been doing something pretty cool that a lot of us have been really keen to see more of, and it should be released pretty soon. So you guys are getting your first view of it before anyone else. So please give us some feedback on it. So yeah, Lonnie, over to you, man.
Cool. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be taking you through the low-code programmable card screens. So what are low-code programmable card screens? So basically, these are JavaScript, predefined JavaScript code snippets that a user can apply onto their card. It's designed for non-technical people or semi-technical people, people who don't have as much confidence writing code as most of us. The code snippets, we've designed them to be customizable and easy to use. And we've picked three most common use cases that we've written code for, and we've put brief descriptions for each use case of how the code snippet works so that the user knows exactly what they're applying to their card. So the code snippets can be copied and pasted to a card or published to a card. So we have a publish button there as a edit in IDE button, so that is there a question there somewhere?
No, I think it was just a hot mic. That's a mic. Sorry.
Okay, so I was saying we have a edit an IDE button, which the user can click if they want to make modifications to the code, or a publish button. When the user's happy, they can click publish to publish the code. And the benefits of these screens is that it provides sort of a way for users to get their hands dirty with writing codes onto their cards. And cool. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and show you a quick demo on how these code snippet works. So just tell me when you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Can you guys see my screen? Okay. Cool. So the starting point is the programmable banking section on Investec Online. We've added this a tile here called low code Quickstart. So a user will click here, this tile. Okay. And then they will be presented with the screen here to select a code snippet which they wish to apply to their card. So we'll start off with this code snippet here, and this one here is called update transaction limit, but basically it's the code snippet where you can limit how much the maximum amount of a transaction can be when you do a transaction on your card. So let me select that one. Okay, and then we'll be presented with this screen here to choose which card you wish to select, you wish to apply the code snippet on. So for this code snippet, we'll choose this card which ends in 2068. So let's click on that. Okay, let's just give it a second to load. All right, and then once we've selected the card, we'll be in the code review screen. So here we have a brief description of how this code snippet works. Here we have the card that's selected. This is the code snippet as is. We've made it non-editable so that if you want to edit it, you can edit it in the IDE. And then as a user, when you're on this screen, you'll make changes in this code, in this block called environment.json. So for our example, for updating transaction limit, here, this is the value where you set the maximum amount of per transaction, the value in cents. So here we've set it, the default value is 10,000 cents. So we'll just leave it as is for this example, and then we click publish. Okay, it says that the code snippet has been published successfully. So now we're going to go to the programmable card IDE to see if the code has been indeed published successfully. We select the card, so it's, you remember it said 2068, so it's this one. We select that one. Okay, and then we go to the main.js file. This is the code that was in that non-editable box. And then the environment.json file. This is the code that was in the file that we modified. So we're going to run a simulation now to see if that code works. So as you can see here in the simulation, we've set the cents amount to 10,000 for this bakery fictional shop of ours. So we're going to change this value now to 10,001. So now for this simulated transaction, we'd expect it to fail because it is above the maximum that we've set out in the maximum transaction amount value. So let's run the simulation. Okay, so as you can see in the output, authorization approved is false because of the reason that this value is above. Let's set it to below, run it again. Authorization approved is approved because now it's at that maximum value. So that code, that's how that code snippet works. And now we'll move on to the second code snippet. The second code snippet is this one where you'd like to limit your card to work only for specific merchants. So for example, you want your card to work on Checkers, Woolies, Uber, whatever merchant that you specify. This is the code snippet you select for that use case. So let's select that one. Okay, we select the card that we want to apply the code snippet on. I'll go ahead and pick this one now, 2035. Let's just give it a few seconds to load. There you go. All right. Same thing here where we have the brief description of how this code snippet works. And the environment.json box here is where we list out our merchant that we want the card to work on. So here the default, we've set it to Woolworths, Uber, Checkers, but as a user, you can set it to whatever merchants that you'd like. We're going to publish this code snippet. Okay, code snippets published successfully. So now let's go back to the programmable card IDE to see if that code snippet is published successfully and it works. Okay, we selected the one 2035, so we click on this card. Okay, All right. Okay. All right, we have that code here, and then the environment.json file contains our merchant name. So we're going to simulate the transaction again. As you can see, the merchant name for this simulated transaction is the code is bakery, which is not in this list. So we would expect it, for this simulated transaction to fail because we don't have the code is bakery here. So let's run the simulation. Okay, authorization has failed because of reasons I've just specified. So I'm going to copy this value now and let's close this, put it as part of the list. So the list contains values which are delimited by the pipe symbol. So you can add as many values as you want as long as you delimit them with the pipe symbol. So now that we have the code is bakery here, we would expect this simulated transaction to, let me save this. We would expect the simulated transaction to work now because the merchant is within our list. So let's run the transaction again. Now the transaction is approved, which means this code snippet is working as expected. And then the final use case that we have that I'm going to demo now is one called limit transaction to specific merchant categories. So for example, let's say you want your card to only make fuel purchases and work on toll gates, etc. And you have a use case similar to that. This is the code snippet you click. So you click on this one. You select which card you want to apply the code snippet on, which is, we'll select this 2019 one. Okay, and then, yes, this one works a bit differently where here we have what we call merchant category codes. So we've set the default ones here to be the ones for fuel because fuel is the most common use case that we come across. But in the event that you'd like to change the merchant category, as in put in another code there, you would click this button that says choose merchant categories. So you click this. So we have the fuel merchant categories auto-populated here because those are the values in the environment.json box. We leave it as is for this example. But if you want to change it, you click the drop down and you can select any merchant categories that you want your card to work on. So we'll leave it as is for the fuel. Close the modal. We'll leave these codes, the fuel codes, and then we publish. Okay, code has been published. Now we're going to go to that card, that 2019 card, this one. Okay. All right. So we have our codes here. And the simulated transaction, the merchant category code is for the code is bakery is this value, which is not within our list. So we would expect this simulated transaction to fail. So let's run it. Failed because this code is not there. So let's change it now and add this merchant category code within the list of merchant categories that we want our card to work on. Close this. Okay, and then we save. Okay, now we run the simulator. We'd expect it to work because the merchant code is within our list. So let's run it. Okay, authorization approved. So whatever is in that list, when the transaction is coming through, the merchant code will be compared to the values that are in there, and then we'd approve or decline the transaction accordingly. And yes, that's it for the low code screens. Are there any questions? Nothing?
I'm assuming, yeah.
Lonnie,
sorry.
there's a question through the chat. Is this all happening in a sandbox environment, or are these changes taking place live on the cards, and are these on virtual cards?
So currently we have this deployed onto the staging environment, and we just wanted the users or us to play around with it in that environment first before we deploy it to prod. But look out for any communication from us on when that will be deployed onto production. And in terms of the virtual cards, is D on the call?
I'll help you there, Lonnie. So all of this code works on the normal investor cards and virtual cards. So if you had to go and create yourself a virtual card, like I've done it with my canteen card at work, it will appear on that list, and you could click on it and go publish code either through the low-code screens or just writing out JavaScript. So there's no difference between a virtual card and a normal card from an Investec point of view, from a programmable banking point of view. So it'll work on both. Those things that Lonnie was showing weren't on the sandbox; they were just on the staging IDE. So if you're on prod and you run it, it'll be on the test IDE, obviously in production, which is not your real card. To get real card functionality, you're going to have to swipe it at a merchant or somewhere. That answer your question, hopefully.
Okay. Are they okay? All right, let's see.
There's one more. Is it possible to make use of the API key only and not involve the client in secret to access the APIs? The reason for being is I can revoke the API key should be compromised. I think Adrito, do you want to just expand on that a little bit more?
Okay, thanks. So I've just had a look on the API, and perhaps I think it's a good thing as Devin just answered. Thanks there. I see it's maybe a combination of all three, so that I would not be able to use just the client in secret by itself to access. I might have misunderstood it to be that if I had those two, I can go ahead further to get access tokens and access into the system further. But if it's the case that I need those three, the secret, the key, and the API, if that is correct, then I think it is good. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can elaborate on that quickly. So obviously, so think of the client ID and secret as your keys into the building, but you can't do anything in the building. The X API key lets you define the scopes. In other words, payments, transaction history, etc., and which accounts it affects. So you could get in with the client ID and secret, but you can't do anything. That makes sense because you don't have access because you haven't authorized it through a key.
Yes.
We are also looking at, we're definitely going to do it, giving you ability to recycle your client ID and secret. It's coming quite soon. Okay, so we're aware that people could get concerned that they can't recycle client IDs and secrets. So it is definitely on the cards. In that case, you could basically recycle all three if something gets stolen. But I think for now, as you explained there, your X API key would be the thing that contains the security, even if your client ID and secret are compromised.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Okay, I see Corbis is asking what's the time limit we have for executing. Yeah, Ernie has responded. I was going to say 2 seconds.
That's a Visa thing, so it's not a Investec thing. It's like any Visa control has to happen within 2 seconds, or we basically proceed with the transaction. So if your code runs so long, it'll go through anyway. It will just ignore the programmable banking rules.
And anything else, guys? Oh, Torren.
Torren.
Hey guys, this demo was good. Thanks for that. I actually just have a quick question about the snippets. From a normal user's point of view, would they at some point be like consideration for having this available, easily accessible on like the mobile app in cases where you want to quickly do this? I don't know how the viability is of like having it now, but that I can see this actually being quite useful, especially if there's a marketplace and you want to quickly just log in, select something, set it, and then forget it essentially.
So I think the editor, because the editor is big enough to work on desktop. I'm not sure about iPad, but we'd have to have a look at design decisions that we need to make the code, the editor visible to work on mobile. I don't know if Ernie, you have something to add on to that?
Sure. Yes. When we originally looked at it, we found that the IDE itself becomes a little bit tricky to work with on a mobile. So for the app, we opted in to just give you the ability to enable and disable the rules on your card, so you can't apply them. We could potentially look at revisiting it with this, without the editing and IDE portion, so you could set your limits and then just publish to the card. That could potentially work.
Okay. I can actually elaborate on something while I was thinking about this, because I can imagine like a scenario where you could potentially have, if maybe there was test cases and there was like a marketplace that, or there was a toolbox of all of these like code snippets. And let's say all of these tools are actually like tested, the bank's verified, it's been vetted, and maybe someone could like select a few that they would want to keep for themselves on their user, for example. And at any point on the app, they can just select the snippet and not need to worry about going onto the IDE to verify, knowing that it's been tested and they've done it. So that's just like a use case that I was wondering about.
It's almost like a snippet marketplace kind of thing.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I like that idea. Cool. Guys, if there's anything else you guys want to ask, any sort of the questions, the entire team, as you've seen, is in the call. So feel free to use the chat to ask anything. Lonnie, you happy, mate? Are you?
I'm happy.
Good. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Well done, Lonnie.
Sure. Wayne's very proud. So very cool. But I like that idea. Cool. Let me just open up the slides here. We're just going to go quickly to Neil's thing. So Neil's going to chat to us.
Just Nick, Quibus had his hand up. I don't know, Quibus, do you still have a question?
Quibus, I didn't see that.
Before we move on to my boring stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
Quibus?
Yeah, sorry about that. So just on the after transaction, it's not really unlimited, right? Because if a user gets into an infinite loop, or I decide to do some crypto hashing, that's free compute time, right? So I assume it does, have some time limit, right? The after transaction.
Well, I think if you manage to get it into a loop, it won't end up running your code, but it doesn't have the same limitation as the before transaction. So what happens in the process is once the transaction is authorized, it just kicks off the after transaction. It doesn't actually wait for a response on that one. So the rest of the process carries on. So that allows you then to do your own calculations or whatever you need to do in the after transaction. We don't actually wait for any response on that one.
Right, but yeah, the compute environment is still owned by Investec, and as I work a lot with lambdas in AWS and looking at how customers can exploit that, and it seems like this would be an environment where if I had some heavy compute I can actually exploit the after transaction to do that compute for me. I don't end up paying for that compute time if it's really unlimited. So think of it from an exploit perspective rather of interacting it with as a good actor is all I'm saying.
So can I just understand, you'd have to write that compute in the JavaScript after transaction function though?
Yeah, and you do have the ability to access APIs on the internet, correct? Yeah, so basically I can get whatever data I need to compute from there, and I can have that, it's basically a small container where I can do some heavy processing.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I will have to test it just to see, but it makes sense. The JavaScript obviously call out. So if you're outside of the compute of that the Lambda function, I would assume that you're paying for it after that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do a test.
Yeah, test it. Let me know. It'll be interesting. I
Okay.
like Scallum people like you that think of all these clever ideas. Definitely
I'll let
test
you
it and
know.
let us know. It could be
Please.
quite a horrible exploit if you can do that.
Okay.
Cool. Guys, if there's anything else, please let us know. Share corner covers. Okay, we'll do. Cool. Neil, would you like to talk us about the Investec developer updates and the referral rewards?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I'm on the web version, so I don't have my funky background. So just excuse me. So I'll just blur. So you'll see over the next little bit, and I mean Wayne alluded to it in sort of in his update, is that there's this go-to-market strategy of ours called Investec Developer, and it really stems from, I guess, the evolution of programmable banking, and it's something that like we've kind of thought long and hard about. How do we go to market with all the stuff that we do and all the great stuff that we kind of want you guys to get involved in. Up until quite recently, you know, when we went in the building and we had to try to like explain to bankers and all these, you know, different like regulation teams or whatever we refer to them as, like what do we do, where's the risk and all of that, you know, we would go out and say, you know, we do programmable banking. Programmable banking's got three parts, which is, you know, APIs, it's the ability to run all the cool code on your card, and then there's the community obviously that we're in now. And it's, you know, I guess we kind of got a lot of like we got a bit of like brand equity in the building to talk about it, and I think people were kind of buying into it. And we kind of said, okay, what's the next evolution of it? And seeing we are, as a bank, we focusing very heavily on developers and building out developer tools and doing as much as we can, it kind of made sense that we have the sub brand that's called Investec Developer. So what you'll see is that we'll start to slowly scale down on sort of the wording of programmable banking and really push the Investec developer sub brand a lot more, not only in our, like, I guess our PR, in our marketing, in our social media, but we'll also start to talk about it in like menu items. So as opposed to logging on to Investec Online and looking for programmable banking, you'll look for developer. And there's a bit of a reason behind it. Like, it gives us a bit of a, it shows that we've got these developer tools, we're focusing on developers, but also as we start to look at some exciting things that we can hopefully show you soon, that maybe talk, you know, they're a bit off center when it comes to programmable banking. We feel like it's a bigger umbrella and it's a little bit more, I guess, it's a little bit more intuitive as to what it all entails. So we're quite excited. That's our cool logo. It's the Investec Developer Squiggly, and you'll start to see it on like our dev portal. You'll start to see it on some of the other, as I say, some of the other pieces that we, like PDFs and things that we'll start to go with to market. And I mean, it's exactly the same stuff that we've been punting. It's really just a nice way to encapsulate everything. So, you know, it's still, we're going and saying, well, it's got three main parts to it. It's the banking integration APIs. And obviously we're working very closely with all the different business units within Investec, like wealth and investment, further down the line, you know, Forex, and we'll work very closely with them to offer like a full array. So it's not just your banking. Then obviously it's all your private, your programmable banking accounts that we've spoken through. And Lonnie, I mean, great work. I wanted to say in the beginning, I kind of went over it, is like the success of it, all the stuff that we're doing here. I always see it as, if my father-in-law can use it, like that's when we're winning. And I think we're getting very close to a place where Johan Peterson can start to put rules on his card. So very cool. So congrats. And then obviously we're focusing a lot on the programmable banking community, like the community that we know and love and we're sitting in at the moment. So what you'll start to see is you'll start to see us going very gung-ho to say, you know, we're focusing on developer, we're focusing on developer tools, and really we want to make a difference in providing, you know, different banking experience through these tools. So that's really the elevator pitch of what we're doing. That's what it will start to look like, and you can start to like look out for it. As I said, it will be on the developer portal and all of our sort of PDFs and things like that going forward. So we're quite excited about that. Then just a quick note from my side. you would have got an email, as well as it was included in the newsletter, as well as a message on Slack, is that we are running we're calling it a referral campaign. It's really not a campaign. We offer this thing at Investec that if you refer your buddies and they sort of are a client for long enough, and there are just a few criteria that you kind of have to meet. But if you sign your buddies up for Investec as clients, then you yourself can earn some rewards points. It's not a campaign. This is us saying, we know that you're talking to your colleagues. We know that you're talking to your friends. Like, we just want to give you something back. So what you just need to do is, it's all in the email, but you just need to go and register on a separate site, on the referral site. And then basically, once you share that code with your mates, or your colleagues, they can go and sign up to be Investec clients, and then you can earn yourself some rewards points. And it's like a really cool, offering. So we've got lots of guys that are kind of making a lot of rewards points out of it. So go for it. It's by no means, as I say, it's not a campaign. This is us saying, here's a way to get back if you're referring your colleagues and your friends. So enjoy it. If you have any questions, reach out to Nick, reach out to me. And yeah, have a look out for the Investec developer brand that we're going to start pushing quite hard. So yeah, thanks so much for your time. Any questions that are non-technically related? Cool. Thanks, guys.
That's good. Thanks. Appreciate it. But again, guys, the community will continue to be the really cool place that it is. It's just we get now more focus on it, which is really cool, and you're going to see why soon. Yeah. Just some community updates. So before we jump into the community updates sort of thing, guys, the usual sort of routine. We really love your feedback on tonight's events. How do we make it cool? How do we make it better for you? Did you find it quite, lacquer? But there's also a bonus sort of whole questions in the questionnaire, where we're looking at because what sort of community perks would you like to see in the community? Because what sort of swag, because what sort of perks would you like to see in the community? And let's see how we can make that happen for you as part of being part of the community. So yeah, so feel free to, let us know around that. That'll be really cool. So just to give you guys a quick update. So we did something really fun, very cool on Saturday. Wayne kind of alluded to it earlier on. We worked with Agile Bridge to do a little hackathon for their company. So they had an internal sort of whole hackathon, and we hosted it at the Investec Pretoria offices for their teams. And working on Programmable Banking. So that's where we got to use a lot of the community tools that we've been building up over the last few years, from Devin sort of his Postman collection to Henny's sandboxes, to all of that sort of stuff, and we put it into a nice, really fun sort of package that everyone had fun with. And we're really keen to help other sort of whole companies play around with Programmable Banking. So if you're keen, I'm trying to work on getting those solutions, getting those presentations. There were some really funny ones. I'm sure anyone who attended, feel free to let us know which one do you like the most. But the one that won was a naughty sort of your naughty sort of thing. That was actually quite funny, where you got clapped for that. So, but I'm not going to give too much away. I'm asking Marius to give us this whole demo on it. So he's going to do that for us. But if you're keen to do something for your own company and you want to host it at Investec with Programmable Banking, let us know. We're happy to help you put it together, to host it for your company or anything of that nature. So, and again, we are also looking at doing one bigger sort of community one, which I'm hoping to get all of you guys in one space to do something really cool. So yeah, so look out for that. So if you want to know more, please feel free to get in touch with us around that. And then one last thing, guys. We ran a community survey in Q1. We'd really love your feedback on Q4. A lot of stuff that you guys mentioned in Q1, sort of that whole survey, we tried to do in this year, and a lot of that was done within this year. So there's some cool things that came out of that whole survey. So if you want to share with us some more feedback, some more experiences that you might have, or any ideas of how you think we can make this community even cooler for you, even more accessible for others, please let us know. We'd really love your feedback on it, and so that we can make this community really cool. It takes, say, 7 minutes of your time. It's quick, it's easy, and I'll see what else I can do for you guys who submit. But yeah, guys, let's make this community really cool for 2024, and we really love your feedback on it because you guys make this community. That's me. So that's the community. That's the meetup for tonight. Guys, I know I don't want to waste any much of your time. I think we're actually on time. Exactly. So if you want to just stick around a bit longer and just talk, chat about anything, any sort of questions that you might have, or just hang, that's perfectly cool. But for our formal sort of agenda, guys and girls, thank you very much for your time. I wouldn't want to waste any more of it. We love you all, and thank you very much for spending some time with us. Yeah, that's me. Any questions?
Well done, Nick.
Everyone happy?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Oh, thanks, guys. Anything else you guys want to know? Any questions? Yeah, feel free to ask. The people are here, so that's all cool. Thanks, guys. Oh.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers. Thank you,
Thank you.
Wayne. Thank
Okay,
you,
bye.
Lonnie.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Cheers,
Thanks.
everyone. Have a good
Appreciate it.
evening.
Cheers. Take. Bye.
Bye.